1 week after my son invited me to dinner just to mock me, my phone would not stop vibrating. I am Olivia Bennett, 72 years old, and I was standing in my kitchen in Boston, staring at the screen like it belonged to someone else. Bank alerts stacked one after another, missed calls, voicemails I had not opened. I set the phone down, and it buzzed again, skittering across the counter. "Mom," Ethan's voice said from the first voicemail, tight and breathless. "Call me back, now." I didn't. Another alert appeared. "Account change confirmed." Then another. "Statement available." The story you are about to hear is a work of fiction created by the Her Chains channel team, based on real-life situations to convey lessons about family, emotions, and human values. All characters and events are illustrative. I poured myself a glass of water and sat at the small table by the window. I had not raised my voice. I had not argued. I had not warned anyone. That was the part I kept coming back to. A week earlier, Ethan had laughed at me across a linen-covered table and called me a failure. He told me they had invited me out of pity and asked me not to stay long. I remembered the ease in his voice, the confidence. I remembered how certain he was that I would swallow it. Like I always had. My phone lit up again. This time it was a text from Marla, his wife. "Something is wrong with the accounts," she wrote. "Please tell me you didn't do anything drastic." I read it twice. I didn't answer. The landline rang. I hadn't heard that sound in years. When I picked up, the man on the other end spoke carefully, like he was stepping around something fragile. "Mrs. Bennett, this is Lucas Ramirez from the bank. I'm calling to confirm a series of changes you authorized." "Yes," I said. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. "There may be repercussions," he added. "I understand," I said, and meant it. After I hung up, I finally opened one of the bank emails. I did not read the numbers. I already knew what they would show. Nothing had vanished. Nothing had been taken. It had simply gone back to where it belonged. If I never raised my voice, why was my son already losing everything Ethan called me on a Tuesday afternoon, right as I was folding laundry? "Mom," he said, too brightly, "we're doing a small New Year's dinner. Just family. You should come." The word should landed heavier than it needed to. "That's nice," I said. "Where?" He named a restaurant downtown, one I knew I would never choose for myself. Too expensive. Too polished. The kind of place where people noticed who belonged. "You'll need to dress well." He added quickly, "It's kind of a visible spot. Visible? Not comfortable. Not familiar. Visible." "I can manage," I said. There was a pause, just long enough to feel like he was weighing something. "And don't be late," he continued. "We have a reservation, and Marla hates waiting." As if on cue, his wife's voice slipped into the call, light and controlled. "Hi, Olivia, we're really looking forward to seeing you." She said it the way people say they hope a meeting goes smoothly. "That's kind of you," I replied. "We thought it would be good," she went on. "To start the year together. Clean slate." A clean slate implied something had been messy. I let that pass. After we hung up, I stood in my quiet apartment and held the phone in my hand. It had been months since Ethan invited me anywhere that wasn't an obligation or a last-minute favor. I told myself this was progress. I told myself people soften with age, that suns circle back. I chose an outfit carefully that night, not because I wanted to impress them, but because I did not want to give them an excuse. At 72, I had learned that silence often came from removing easy targets. The day before the dinner, Ethan texted again. "Just confirming you're coming. A few people might stop by." People, not family. "Of course," I wrote back. I sat with that word for a long time after I sent it. Coming, not joining, not being welcomed. Coming, like attendance mattered more than presence. I told myself it was reconciliation anyway. I told myself it counted. But even then, I couldn't shake the feeling that this invitation was not a gift. It was a condition. Ethan didn't lower his voice when he leaned toward me. That was the first thing I noticed. No effort to make it private. No hesitation. "We only invited you out of pity," he said, smiling like he was sharing a clever aside. "So don't stay long, okay?" The table went quiet in that way that isn't really quiet. Glasses paused mid-air. Someone across from us glanced down at their plate. No one told him to stop. I looked at him, waiting for the joke to land somewhere else. It didn't. He laughed. A short, easy sound. I mean, let's be honest. He continued. "You've never really made much of yourself. We figured it was the least we could do. Failure." He didn't say the word right away. He let it hang between us first. Like he wanted everyone to agree. Then he said it. A failure. A man at the far end of the table let out a breath that might have been a chuckle. Someone else shifted in their chair. No one met my eyes. Marla sat beside Ethan with her hands folded neatly in her lap. She didn't smile. She didn't frown. She watched me the way people watch to see how something fragile will break. "You're being dramatic," Ethan added when I didn't respond. "Relax. We're just talking. As if this were an exchange. As if I had been given a turn. I felt heat rise up my neck, then something colder settle in its place. This wasn't a slip. This wasn't a drink too many or a poorly timed joke. He knew the lines. He hit every one of them cleanly, out of pity. "Don't stay long. Failure." I picked up my glass and took a slow sip. My hand didn't shake. That seemed to confuse him more than anger would have. Ethan frowned. "See," he said to the table. "She gets it." I set the glass down. "I have an early morning," I said. My voice sounded level, almost distant. "Thank you for dinner." No one stopped me. No one followed. As I stood, Ethan leaned back in his chair, satisfied. He looked certain of something then. Certain I would leave the way I always did. Quiet. Embarrassed. Unchanged. He had no idea how carefully this moment had been prepared. I smiled. Not the tight, apologetic smile Ethan was used to, but a small, contained one. I lifted my glass, took a measured sip, and set it back down where it had been. The sound was soft, ordinary. It cut through the moment more cleanly than shouting ever could. Ethan blinked. He had been waiting for something else. "See?" he said to the table, forcing a laugh. "She's fine." I stood. The chair barely scraped the floor. "I have an early morning," I said. "Thank you for dinner." That was it. No explanation. No defense. No appeal for kindness. I did not look at Marla. I did not wait for permission. I simply stepped away. Behind me, someone murmured my name, uncertain. Ethan didn't. He leaned back, confident, already filing this under the familiar category of my quiet exits. As I walked toward the door, the noise at the table crept back in. Forks moved. A glass clinked. The evening resumed without me, as if that had been the plan all along. Outside, I paused long enough to steady my breath. I felt the heat in my face fade, replaced by a clear, sharp calm. This was not the first time Ethan had spoken to me like that. It was just the first time he had done it so publicly, so neatly, as if he wanted witnesses, I thought of all the other moments I had explained away over the years, the rushed phone calls that ended with requests. The paperwork slid across tables with phrases like, "just for now," and "it helps everyone." The way he spoke about my life as if it were a cautionary tale he had outgrown. In the car, my phone lit up with a message from Ethan before I had even pulled away. "You didn't have to make it awkward." I did not reply. What struck me most, as I drove home, was not the insult itself. It was his certainty, the ease with which he delivered it, the way he leaned back afterward, convinced the pattern would hold. He believed I would go home embarrassed and do nothing. He believed I had nowhere else to go but back into the role he had assigned me. That belief was the only thing keeping him comfortable. The folder was exactly where it had always been, tucked behind winter coats I barely wore anymore, a thin, tired thing, edges bent. My name written across the front in my own handwriting from years ago. I carried it to the table and opened it, the way you open something you expect to be harmless. The first page was familiar. A joint account agreement. Ethan had asked me to add my name temporarily, just to help him smooth things out while a deal settled. I remembered his tone, casual, reassuring. "It won't affect you," he had said back then. "I just need your name for a bit." I turned the page. Another document. A credit line disclosure. My signature again. The word temporary appeared nowhere. My phone buzzed. A text from Ethan. "You embarrassed me tonight." I set the phone face down and kept reading. There were emails printed out, ones I barely remembered receiving. Short messages from Ethan. From Marla. From a bank representative copied in. "Just sign this. It's easier if it's in your name. We'll switch it back later. Later never came." I flipped to another section. Statements. Not amounts yet, just names and structures. Primary holder. Authorized user. Co-applicant. The language was plain when I slowed down enough to read it. My name wasn't decorative. It wasn't symbolic. It was functional. I felt something tighten in my chest, not panic, but recognition. Small moments began lining up, one after another, the way Ethan never worried when money was tight. The confidence with which he took risks. The assumption that things would always work out. Because they did. For him. I remembered a call from years ago. Late at night, his voice strained. Hurried. "I just need you to help me this once," he had said. "I'll handle everything." I had believed him. I had wanted to believe him. The next document stopped me cold. A property-related form. My name again, typed neatly at the top. I traced the letters with my finger, as if they might change. This wasn't help. This was insulation. My phone buzzed again, this time with a voicemail notification. I didn't listen. I didn't need to hear his version yet. I closed the folder and sat back, the room very quiet around me. The discoveries had come in small pieces, each one manageable on its own. Together, they formed something else entirely. Every arrangement protected Ethan. Every risk pointed outward, toward me. I called the bank the next morning with the folder open in front of me. "I'm trying to understand my role on these accounts," I said. "Not what I was told. What the paperwork actually says." The woman on the line asked for my name, then my date of birth. Then she paused. One moment. "Mrs. Bennett." When she came back, her voice had shifted. Careful, precise. "You are listed as the primary holder on the joint credit account," she said. "Your son is an authorized user." I gripped the edge of the table. "Primary," I repeated. "Yes," she said. "That means the account exists because of you." I thanked her and ended the call before she could say anything else. I sat there for a long time after that, staring at my own signature on the page. The words I had skimmed past for years now felt heavy with meaning. Primary holder, co-applicant, financial responsibility. I called again, this time about a different account, then another. Each call ended the same way. "Yes, Mrs. Bennett. Yes, your name carries the liability. Yes, you are the reason this line of credit was approved." The picture sharpened with every confirmation. Ethan's confidence. The risks he took. The way money never seemed to scare him. His life wasn't built on success alone. It was built on my name quietly standing between him and consequence. I wasn't the burden he described at that table. I was the shield. My phone buzzed with a message from Ethan. "We need to talk." I set it aside and opened a notebook. The paper was blank, clean, waiting. I wrote my name at the top, slowly, as if claiming it again. Then I wrote a short list beneath it. Every account tied to me, every obligation I never agreed to carry forever, every signature that had been treated like a given. The anger came late, but it came clean, not wild or shaking, focused. I saw the pattern clearly now. And once you see something like that, it cannot be unseen. I had spent years believing I was being helped, included, protected. The truth was simpler. I had been used because I was quiet, trusted because I did not ask questions, kept close because my name opened doors that his could not. I closed the notebook and placed it back on the table, right beside the folder. The next step did not feel like revenge. It felt like correction. Nathan Cole listened without interrupting. He didn't rush me. He didn't soften anything. Either. "I'm not here to punish anyone," I said as I slid the folder across his desk. "I just want my name to stop being used." He adjusted his glasses and opened the folder, scanning the pages with quick, practiced movements. "This isn't revenge," he said after a moment. "This is exposure, and exposure needs boundaries. That's what I want." I told him. "Boundaries that don't depend on explanations." He nodded once. Then we moved quietly. Nathan explained the process in plain language. No dramatics, no promises, just steps. "First, we remove you from any account where you are carrying risk without control," he said. "Second, we freeze anything that can be used again without your consent. Third, we document how these signatures were obtained." I watched his pen move as he made notes. Each line felt like a door closing behind me. "Will they be notified?" I asked. "They'll find out," he said. "But not because you announce it." That mattered to me. I didn't want a confrontation. I didn't want to defend myself against accusations that would come anyway. Nathan made the calls with me sitting there, listening. "Yes," he said into the phone. "Mrs. Olivia Bennett is requesting removal from liability effective immediately. Yes, we are freezing access pending review. No, there was no informed consent for continued use." Each confirmation landed quietly, but the weight of it settled in my chest. My phone buzzed twice while he was still talking. Ethan. Then Marla. I turned the screen face down and left it there. "Once this starts," Nathan said, lowering his voice, "you don't stop halfway. Silence is part of the protection." "I can manage silence," I said. By the time I stood to leave, several documents had been flagged, several processes set in motion. Nothing dramatic had happened. No voices raised, no threats made. Outside, my phone buzzed again. "Why aren't you answering?" Ethan texted. I slipped the phone into my bag without replying. The changes would not be immediate. That was the point. They would arrive in pieces. Missed connections, declined assumptions, gaps where certainty used to live. As I walked home, I felt steady, not relieved yet, but anchored. I wondered how long it would take before he noticed. It happened quietly, the way most serious things do. The first sign was a voicemail from Ethan that I did not answer. His voice was tight, rushed. "Mom, call me. There's an issue with one of the accounts." An hour later, another message, then another. By the end of the day, the tone had shifted. "Something's wrong," he said. "The payment didn't go through. It's probably a bank error." I said nothing. The next morning, a bank notice arrived in my inbox, then another. Automatic payments had failed. Access had been restricted pending review. A line of credit had been frozen until liability was clarified. Nothing dramatic. No accusations, just facts. My phone lit up again, this time with Marla's name. Olivia, she said when I finally answered, her voice carefully controlled. We're seeing some strange activity. Are you? I said. Yes, she replied. Cards are being declined. The bank says there are changes on file. I see. She paused, waiting for more. When I didn't fill the silence, she pressed on. Did you authorize something? I authorized clarity, I said, and ended the call that afternoon. Ethan called again. He didn't bother pretending this time. What did you do? He demanded. My payment bounced. Do you have any idea how bad that looks? I held the phone away from my ear until his voice dropped. I didn't touch your money. I said calmly, I touched my name. He laughed, sharp and disbelieving. That doesn't even make sense. It will, I said, and hung up. The statements began arriving the next day. Envelopes and emails, confirmations and summaries. They didn't show theft or loss. They showed absence. Lines where access used to be. Permissions that no longer applied. I opened one and read it carefully. All the way through, everything was in order. By the third day, Ethan stopped leaving messages and started sending texts in long, frantic blocks. Accusations. Please. Promises to fix things. I did not respond. By the end of the week, the panic had sharpened into something else. Confusion, then fear. He still believed this was a mistake. He had not yet understood that mistakes get corrected. Permissions get revoked. Ethan showed up at my door without calling. I recognized the knock immediately, too sharp, too certain. When I opened it, he didn't bother with a greeting. You went behind my back, he said. You sabotaged me. I stepped aside and let him in. He looked around like he was searching for evidence, for proof that I had planned this out of spite. You overreacted. He continued. It was a joke. One dinner. And now my accounts are a mess. They aren't a mess. I said, they're accurate. He stared at me, stunned by how little effort it took to say that. Marla hovered near the doorway, arms crossed. Olivia. This didn't have to get so extreme. She said, families talk things through. Families don't hide liability in someone else's name. I replied. Ethan scoffed. You're twisting things. You agreed to help me. I agreed to help, I said evenly. Not to be responsible forever. Not to be blamed when your plans failed. He ran a hand through his hair. You've ruined my credit. You've embarrassed me. I didn't embarrass you, I said. I stopped protecting you. That landed harder than anything else I could have said. Marla tried again, softer this time. We can fix this. You can reverse it. There's nothing to reverse, I said. I removed myself. That's all? Ethan's voice rose. You're my mother, yes, I said. And that's why I won't let you use me. The room went quiet. For the first time since he walked in, Ethan looked uncertain. Not angry, not confident, just exposed. I won't sign anything for you again. I continued. No accounts. No favors. No emergencies that somehow always land on me. He opened his mouth, then closed it. When they left, neither of them slammed the door. They didn't need to. The truth had already settled between us, heavy and unmoving. The final bank statements arrived in a plain envelope, the kind that doesn't announce anything. I opened them at my kitchen table and read every page slowly. The changes were clean, names corrected, responsibilities clarified, access removed where it had never belonged. Nothing dramatic on paper, just the truth. Finally aligned with ink and dates. Ethan called once that week, not to apologize, not to ask for help, just to say, things are tighter now. I know, I said. He waited for more. There wasn't any. He hadn't lost a mother. He hadn't been disowned. What he lost was leverage, the quiet advantage he'd mistaken for love. When the call ended, I felt no urge to explain myself. That surprised me most. Nathan helped me finish restructuring what remained. One account closed, another placed solely under my control. He slid the last document across the table and said, "This is permanent. That's what I wanted," I told him. Later, Grace called. "How do you feel?" she asked. "Lighter," I said. "Not happy, just steady." That night, I poured tea and sat with the statements stacked neatly beside me. I thought about how easily silence can be mistaken for consent, and how often kindness gets repackaged as obligation. The lessons settled without ceremony boundaries are not punishments. They are protections. Love doesn't require you to disappear. If this story felt familiar, if you've ever been asked to carry more than you agreed to, take a moment. Read what you sign. Ask the questions that make rooms uncomfortable. And if this helped you feel less alone, tap like, leave a comment, or subscribe. Your voice matters. I folded the statements and placed them in the drawer, closed it, and turned off the light. The quiet that followed wasn't empty. It was mine.